That's a great question to start with, because I've been working around volunteering for a long time, almost around 20 years now. And it's always interesting to see that the essence of the concept remains the same, while you might change a few of the interpretations or visions or beliefs around volunteering. So volunteering essentially, for me, means a form of social responsibility assumed by every individual. It's an individual contribution that you decide to give to the community, to the environment, to another person, just because this society is a result of everything we do, big or small, in our lives and every day, wherever we are. On the other hand, having worked for so many years around volunteers, I can definitely say that volunteering is also a good way of gaining experience. It's a good activity to test a future profession, to see how it feels to work in a certain environment and decide whether this is something that you really want to do for the rest of your life or as a professional career. It's also a way to develop soft skills, but again, it's a way to make good friends and spend your time meaningfully. I think these are very good times to be asking ourselves this question, and I really hope that everybody is actually reflecting on this kind of questions these days. I think I put up 3 words on this. The first one is resilience, and while I'm using these words, it's not only just a way of talking about things. I am talking about concepts that we decide to apply in our daily practice. So when I think of resilience, for me, this means the ability to reshape whatever happens to you as an organization, inside or outside to your environment. You have the ability to reshape yourself. You keep your essence, you know what's your core mission, what's your core value, and what you deliver to the society or to your beneficiaries. On the other hand, you have the ability to adjust the edges and just navigate through whatever rough environment you have to in certain times. The second word I put up is flexibility. And it might seem that yes, in the volunteer sector, we are more flexible. It might be true, but it depends to whom we compare ourselves. So when I talk about flexibility, I'm thinking about going quickly and not very painfully from one way of doing things to a different way of doing things. Let's take, for instance, working in the office and the transition to working remotely that we all had to experience this month. If this was done quickly and it's not so painfully, then you are a flexible organization. Of course, there are more ways to be flexible and to build your flexibility as an organization. But this is a very simple example to make us understand what I mean by this kind of flexibility. And the third word I put up is agility. And by this, I mean the quick decision making. And also the assumed responsibility of every individual at the level they are working at. For instance, if in regular times we can afford ourselves to wait for 2 months for the executive board to meet and decide to implement a new program, in March this year, we didn't have 2 months to wait for a decision to start working on the pandemic. So an agile organization has a way to take this decision very quickly and to get things started instead of waiting for even 1 month. Sometimes can be a long time if we talk of a particular situation like the one we've recently experienced. So if we talk about the way we take decisions, I think this is a crucial element that needs to be shaped in our organizations in order to get us ready to not to survive, because we might survive, but to perform in an environment which is not the one we used to know, which is not very friendly, and which is also challenging for all of us. So we have to practice this decision making all the time, because if we wait for when we need a quick decision making, we don't have the skills to do this. We need to build up the skills over time, and this means practicing the things. So if you lead an organization and you want to cultivate this flexibility, agility kind of approach to internal processes, you might want, for instance, instead of delegating tasks to the people, to delegate decision-making power. Because when you delegate the decision-making power, those people at their level, where they are in the hierarchy of the organization, they become small leaders at their level. And they develop skills that can be used in crisis situations very differently than the skills that a person who gets delegated only tasks will develop. If you delegate tasks, you will just cultivate a very good follower who will always be waiting for somebody from above to tell them what to do and maybe even how to do it. They will never assume a decision by themselves. So this is a way of cultivating the agility and flexibility, which will eventually lead to the resilience of the organization. And I would keep in mind this word resilience, because I think for long time we have been talking only about sustainability, and I think resilience is about to take over from the sustainability. And these are not opposing concepts. I think resilience includes sustainability, but it's definitely much more than that. And this is something that we need to start working on in the volunteer sector to be ready to face any kind of future challenge that might be in front of us. I would think, for instance, I've been experiencing online school since March with my child, who is almost 8. So he is a first grader, and half of his first year of school has been online. The online school is something that will change the way we do education. It will not stay what it is. I hope it will not stay as it was, because we were not prepared for this. But definitely innovation will come out of this challenge, and we will see different patterns of education emerging for different levels of education, from smaller children to the university level. The same applies when we think about the work patterns. We have experienced working from home, remote connections, different flexible office, taking your work with you everywhere, meeting your colleagues from your house in a completely different environment. I still meet people who complain about this, but I also meet people who are very happy with this and would be glad to change the commuting time they were investing to travel to an office, which sometimes may take even 2 or 3 hours a day, into working from home and gaining those 2-3 hours for any other kind of activity. So I would definitely think that a lot of innovation will come out from this working patterns. On the other hand, dependency of the face-to-face events is again something that will change after this crisis. If we only think about the amount of meetings, seminars, conferences, gatherings that were happening in different sectors at different levels, we will see a different approach to building up events, especially face-to-face events. We could all experience that a conference can be organized online. Of course, the interaction is not the same, although the online has many, many hidden powers that we are yet to discover. On the other hand, it's much more cost-effective. Instead of having people from 10 countries traveling for a one-day meeting, or sometimes for 3 hours meeting, it's much more cost-effective to have an online meeting. So definitely this will also change after this experience. And I can only hope that the funding patterns will also change. If I'm thinking, for instance, of many of the EU-funded programs, they are focusing on bringing people face-to-face in events, conference, debate, seminar-like. And I'm hoping that this will be adjusted to focus on the results that we want to achieve and not necessarily on the number of people and number of countries and number of different things that these people represent. Obviously, volunteering will change. I mean, we were talking about online volunteering, but it was kind of the Cinderella somehow. It was something that we do, but it's not necessarily the first choice that we would take for volunteering. And since March, with the lockdown and everything that's been happening, I was thinking a lot about Padova in Italy, which is the European capital of volunteering this year. I know from last year when they gained the title that they had so many plans, so many events, so many great things to be done during their year as a European volunteering capital. And guess what? They had to change everything. So I think there is a rich amount of experience in how volunteering can be reshaped to meet different kinds of constraints and conditions that I really hope that the volunteer movement will just make the effort of learning out of what people in Padova and of course people in many other volunteer organizations across Europe have done during this year, because there were lots of changes, lot of experiments, if I may call them like this. We were trying out different ways of serving the beneficiaries, different ways of engaging volunteers, different ways of keeping people motivated, informed, communicate well, perform in whatever tasks they have to do. So all of these experiences will definitely change the way we do volunteering, the way we understand the volunteer movement, the way we do events, how we work and how we choose to educate our children and how we choose to do the lifelong learning that each of us is experiencing in our lives. And one very important point that I think needs a lot of attention in the future based on the experience we had this year is the service to beneficiaries. Because here it proved to be quite difficult to find online replacements for lots of services which were happening face to face. If we think of service for disabled people, or if we think of services for children with certain special needs, or for elderly people, this is quite a challenge, and there are circumstances which really require human interaction and presence in the face-to-face with somebody else. But I think we can also think of how to devolve the services, how to make sure that the service providers get as close as possible in the community to the beneficiaries, so everything can be sorted out locally. So we don't need to move around, for instance, from a city, travel to the rural area to deliver some counseling services. We need to identify ways in which the service gets as close as possible to the beneficiary, so we avoid the problems that a possible lockdown or difficulty in traveling or communicating or being face-to-face might arise in delivering our service. And I think this is quite a crucial point for all the social service providers, because this has been a very, very challenging situation, not only for the providers, but also for the beneficiaries who were left without essential care that they were relying on in the before style of interaction. So out of all of these needs and challenges, definitely innovation will come out. The thing is, who's gonna innovate? Are we gonna wait for a new startup to innovate, or are we going to take the lead and innovate in the volunteer sector make use of volunteers in delivering this kind of innovation. This is a challenge, and it's up on our table, and we need to invest in finding ways to use it and to take it forward. I put here up 4 ideas that I want to share with you, and the first one is obviously to be prepared for the unknown and the unexpected. I think for a long time, we have been safe from huge challenges. Of course, there are here and there different things that are happening, but for, at least in Europe, for a long time, we have been safe from huge challenges. So I would say we got used to take for granted the safe environment we are living in. And I hope that this situation will just ring all the possible bells and get us to think anything might happen. A new challenge might arise. We don't know what kind of challenge. So we need to be a little bit less reliant on taking for granted what it is and be ready to become agile and react quickly and adjust quickly. So we need to learn and to be open. The second point I want to share here is related to switching towards flexibility. I do understand the power of the systems and of the structures and procedures. And for a long time, I've been a big fan of structures and procedures. On the other hand, in challenging times, these can just slow down your reaction and prevent you from doing the things that need to be done very quickly. So I would take a look into which are my systems and my processes in the organization, and I would try to analyze them from a speed point of view. If something changes, how can I adapt? And I would build scenarios. Let's say, for instance, that one day we lose completely the connection with, via internet. Let's say for 3 months. How do we work? How do we cover up for this? Who's taking the decisions? How do we communicate? It may sound very strange to do this kind of exercises. On the other hand, I think it can give us quite good insights on the weaknesses, on the blind spots that we have in our systems and processes. And it will help us to be better prepared to face whatever there will be out there waiting for us at some point in time. The third point I want to make is value the people. And here I want to refer to 2 accounting terms. I'm not very good in accounting, but really this was a very good way of showing the difference. If you think of a printer that you've got in your office, in the accounting system, the printer is considered an asset. If you think of a salary you're paying to a person, to an employee who's doing the work, this is listed in the accounting as an expense. Now, during this crisis, the printer has been sitting in the office and not being used. The asset was not used because nobody went to the office. But the people, the expenses, were out there working while holding their kids because they were at home, and the kids don't understand if they are small that mommy has to work. So then what's the asset in this situation? Is it the printer or is it the people? So value the people. I would say that the people that share our cause are the most valuable thing that we have as an organization. And we really need to put in place systems and processes which are valuing the people and which are not putting the people on the second priority list. And the last point I want to make is related to our values. And I think we all need to crisis-proof our values. Are we valuing comfort and tradition? And when I say comfort, I don't mean the material comfort. I mean the comfort of doing things in a certain way as we are used to and as we like to do it. Or are we valuing doing the things that are needed to serve our mission and our cause? Because if we are looking for comfort, this crisis has been really challenging. There was nothing comfortable. Everything was changed in this. So this is not a value that I would take forward in my organization. but I would take forward the other values like the responsibility, the agility, the empathy, the dedication to the cause. These are the kind of values that I definitely want to take forward because they are crisis proof. Whatever kind of crisis comes, dedication and responsibility of the people will help me go through the crisis, not comfort and not other let's say softer values. So I think we need to be prepared for the unknown and become more flexible in an intentional way and exercise this in good times so we are able, when the situation requires, to really act flexibly. But we also need to value people and rethink a little bit about our values. And we only need a little time of reflection, because what happened to us from March until now has provided perfect environment to stimulate reflection and innovation and change.